Mark, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay.
It's great.
Okay.
You know about brains.
George, how many have online, George? 17. Total is 17 participants. Okay.
Should know how well I am. Come on.
Everything good? Aloha, Mike and
Oh, can't do. What a nice hat.
Brownie, can you folks hear me?
Still useful.
Okay.
Use that job.
Yep.
Can we okay that meeting recorded? So I can see faces. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this meeting. It's been a while since I've seen you folks. It's good to be here. Honolulu is bright and shiny. I hope everybody's preparing for whatever is coming this weekend. And as I was telling Christian, as you see, she's online too. This is something normal for us. She's worried about a hurricane. I said, it's not, it's normal for us. Normal for us this time of the year. So, thank you all for being here. It's exciting to be here again. Missed the last meeting. Thank you, Martha, for chairing that. Want to call the meeting to order at this time. We got a lot of information we want to talk about as we begin this meeting. But prior, well, hold on. Let me do a roll call real quick for official purposes. Judge Town.
Yo, here.
Judge Browning.
Here.
Ibarra here. Martha.
I'm here.
And I'm present as well. So, yeah, we're lucky to have all the commissioners present today, 3 physical and 2 online. So, Martha?
I'm asking for, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda, and the motion is to amend the agenda after item number 7, which is the OCCC tour, by adding a subject called interim capacities. And I'll explain as we get to that why we need this. So, can you accept my motion?
I have a motion to add to the, an amendment to the agenda on interim capacity of our facilities. Second, can I get a second?
Second, yes.
Second by
Mark Browning?
Mark Browning. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say same. Any abstentions? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Let's take a look at the meetings for the July 18th meeting that's in your packet that was sent out by our staff. I'll take a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. Been moved by Martha and seconded by Ron that we accept the meeting minutes as written on the July 18, 2024 commission meeting. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say same. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passed. Thank you, everyone. I want to open it up right now for the agenda items that we have had listed. And let's, if we may, keep our testimonies below 2 minutes and to the agenda as written. So I'll take a show of hands. Anybody wish to provide some testimony at this time? Are you brought up, Ray? Okay, go ahead.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, mai kako. Hey, welcome back, Kristen. Glad to have you back. So reporting from Ohana Ho'opakele, we have requested in to participate with the Makahiki coming up in October, November 16th in Sagaro facility. So our requests are in. We're working with SANA and to get that moved forward and approved. We also have a request through SANA to begin a pilot program up at Kulani on the Big Island, on Hawaiʻi Island. So we're waiting for answers from these requests, and we're just hoping that it meets with success. Another thing is our People's Fund. We were awarded a grant from the People's Fund, which more than just allows us a little bit money, but hooks us up with a network of other with other people to build capacity and to recipients of the People's Fund and stockholders to help facilitate what we hope in support of the rehabilitation portion of our goal with this. Kulani also, we're talking about Puhonu, which also includes like a safe place where people can come back and die with some dignity here in Hawaii, in their homeland, back close to their families and stuff. And we just recently heard that there was another incident up there on the continent regarding someone who's sick, who may have passed already, but this is just recent news. And with that, I would just like to pass it on and introduce Brittany, who will read a letter from one of her family members up there in Saguaro at this time. Mahalo.
Lord.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Brittany DeGuerre. I'm a nutritional advisor and manager at Vitamin World. I will be reading a letter from a man that I hold very close to my heart. I had an absent father. He's my sister's father, and he stepped in really amazingly. My sister unfortunately can't be here today for work, so I'm taking the time to read this letter. In 1989, I had a confrontation at a park that led me to making the biggest mistake of my life. After that night, I was convicted of attempted murder in the first degree and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. This was 36 years ago. Since then, I have been taken from Hawaii and placed in a mainland prison. I am not here to claim I am innocent. I am here to ask for forgiveness and a pardon for my mistake. At 67 years old, I ask that I be released to spend the time I have left on earth with my children and grandchildren. Since being in prison, I have become a painter and donated many paintings to hospitals and charities. As a Navy veteran myself, I've made support groups for our vets. Additionally, I've run support groups for other inmates serving life without parole sentences and organized fundraisers, donating proceeds to numerous organizations and charities. I wasn't able to be in my children's lives physically, but I call them weekly since that very unfortunate night, always guiding them in the best way possible and teaching them that one wrong mistake can change your entire life. People make mistakes, some mistakes being worse than others. I understand I was wrong and needed to be punished, but now after 36 years in prison, I ask for forgiveness so I may reunite with my family. Please consider granting me clemency so I can spend what remains of my time with my family while continuing my efforts towards positive contributions outside of these prison walls. The criminal justice system should also consider factors such as age, rehabilitation efforts, and time served when evaluating cases like mine. Studies show that older inmates pose less risk upon release. The source given is Bureau of Justice Statistics. The last commutation was done in the 1990s, leaving us lifers to die in prison. Many inmates here have very poor health. We ask that you make a change on our commutations. Not only are we dying in prison, we are dying away from our families and homelands. Thank you for your time, Michael Hughes.
Thank you, Brittany. If you can, send us a copy of the letter.
Yes, will do.
Thank you. Kat, do you wanna, I just seen Bob threw his hand up. Bob, go ahead.
Bob Mertz,
Bob, you're muted.
you're muted, Bob.
Sorry. With regard to the new jail that's on the agenda, I would request that someone from the commission ask the department, what is the RFP for? Is the RFP that they have been talking about to design the new jail, to build the new jail, to design and build the new jail, to design, build, and finance the new jail? Exactly what is it about? And since it is going to have such a major impact and be an RFP for the biggest project ever issued in this state, because the new jail will be the biggest public works project. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Anyway, that is what I would like to know. And I'll just leave it at there. I'm sorry for all the interruptions here.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Kat. You're muted. Are we muting her?
Maybe ask her to unmute.
But we'll see whether we can unmute you from down here. Possible to do that?
George can ask her to.
Yeah.
No, she's saying she can't do it. Oh, there, it's unmuted. Kat?
No.
Oh, no, we still can't hear you.
You might have to reboot, Kat, and then come back, and we'll come back to you. Okay, or type it in. We'll move on until Kat figures out her technical issues. Anybody else want to comment on the agenda? Looking for raised hands.
I would like to let the others on over that.
Sorry.
Mark,
Yeah. Hold on, Mike. You wanna come
So
closer?
where should I?
You can just stand right by the television. They'll hear your voice. And then, oh, hi, Carol.
And you might want to bring a chair over with you.
I didn't even recognize you.
Should stand? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
That's why I want to make sure the voice you can.
Okay,
They hear you.
come over here. though,
Yeah, come
because
over here so
we
people
want
can
her to
see
be
you.
on the-
Sorry,
It would
Carol.
have been easier to go, so it would probably be better to be present.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get the chair.
Thank you. Do you want to sit there? You'll stand, that's okay.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Aloha, Chair Patterson, Commissioners, community. My name is Carrie Ann Shirota. I'm the Policy Director for the ACLU Hawaiʻi, and we wish to comment on Agenda Item 8, Commission's position on the new jail. First of all, we want to thank you for listing this item on your agenda for discussion. This matter is urgent given that the state and the Department of Corrections' unwillingness to implement evidence-based practices to divert people from our jails at less cost to taxpayers and without jeopardizing public safety. Other states and counties have significantly reduced its jail population through data-driven strategies, including bail reform. DCR and lawmakers recently visited an Indiana jail funded by taxpayer dollars. They could have visited other jurisdictions that reduced successfully the number of people in jail cells. Instead, they continue to push for jail construction and a leaseback structure that will make our community safer and less safe and poorer. That jail that they visited was for a population of 1,300 something. Is that an inkling into continued expansion of jails? The leaseback buyback provision means that the community members will end up spending more than $1 million for the jail, the largest public works state project in the history of Hawaii. ACLU's demand, and we're hearing this from other community members, especially from loved ones who have their husbands, children locked up in our jails. We demand investments in Care First, Jail Last by enacting a 3-year moratorium to stop all planning, designing, and spending of taxpayer dollars for a new jail to replace OCCC and Hawaii for that matter. And we will be lobbying our lawmakers to also support this moratorium. Additionally, we will be requesting a forensic audit of DCR's jail projects. We need a full accounting of all expenses relating to jail planning over the years. For a new jail in Maui, OCCC, who has been benefiting from these contracts? Are the donors, are these planners donors to lawmakers? Are they current or past lobbyists for private prison operators like CoreCivic? Bottom line is we need full transparency and accountability, and we're asking for a moratorium and a forensic audit before we spend another dime on continued jails where we can reinvest that into community and diversion. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Ann. Do you have any other comments on testimony on the agenda today?
Mark,
Yes, Mike?
just add a girl to Brittany. Brittany, you there?
Yes.
But thank you for your testimony. I heard it we heard it loud and clear. And there's a thing called a reduction of minimum. And
Okay.
in my view, that should be a face-to-face, well-presented, due process, 14th Amendment, because we're talking about somebody's life. And we're talking about coming home from the continent. So if we could just put that in the record, and you can call me anytime, we'll talk about it, or call Kristen or Kara. It's what you said is very important.
Thank you so much for your guys' time.
No other further testimonies visible at this time. I'm going to move forward to item number 5 on the agenda. Morning, Tommy. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. So with respect to the transition to corrections and rehabilitation, we've just about completed the transition. We're still updating policies and procedures. We, just before the end of June 30th, we finally completed the property transition from all of law enforcement entities over to the DLE, to Department of Law Enforcement. That would have been all of the cars, the weapons, all the law enforcement equipment, vehicles, those kind of things. We're still updating our policy and procedures, which we're almost done. We still have to finish rebadging our vehicle fleet, which is about 40% done, to change from Department of Public Safety to Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Other than that, that's where we stand now.
Well, we only have on the agenda transition to corrections and
I can't hear you, Martha. Could you speak up?
I was just asked, I wanted to add anything to this, but I see on our agenda, the only thing we asked you to report on was transition to corrections and rehabilitation.
So what does that mean exactly?
No, you're talking about it.
Yeah.
What you're doing right now.
Oh, okay.
Because as you know, one of the speakers, Carrie Ann, asked that we discuss the commission is going to be discussing our position on the new jail, and I'm hoping you're going to stay with us until then.
What item number is that?
That is item number 8.
Okay, all right. I can hang until then.
Thank you.
Just one question on what you just said, Tommy, on your folks is continuing work on the policy and procedure for the new DCR. Does that include your organizational charts?
Organizational charts are completed, with the exception of we're reorganizing the Reentry Coordination Office. Right now, the Reentry Coordination Office includes the SAVIN staff, which is the statewide automated victim information notification system, and the RAV staff, which supports the SAVIN efforts. Those entities are going to be removed outside and placed under the Deputy Director for Rehabilitation and Programs and Services, so that the Reentry Coordination Office will only concentrate on reentry efforts, and making sure that the case managers are trained with respect to the new policies and procedures, and also that they're making a connectivity with the community-based organizations that are assisting us, but also the transition from incarceration to parole and from incarceration to max out. One thing I think the commission has to understand is that the jail population is very transient. And so there's very little we can do for the jail population, which consists of pretrial pretrial misdemeanors, pretrial felons, sentence petty misdemeanors, sentence misdemeanors, initial probation violators, and initial parole violators who are shipped to a prison because they are convicted felons. With respect to the jail population, we can do very little for them with the exception of those that are sentenced misdemeanors that are with us for almost a year, up to a year. Previously, we didn't provide services to them. My plan is to try to do some type of assessment and provide services to them in abbreviated form, and then some type of connectivity to community-based support when they get out. For those that are with us for weekends, for those that come to us to sentence petty misdemeanors for 30 days or less, those that come to us for a few days at a time, there's very little we can do for them because they're not with us long enough for us to do an assessment and then to provide some type of reentry plan. We can try to do that with the sentence misdemeanor population because they're with us long enough for us to give it a try. With the pretrial felon population, we don't do the RAD process for them until they are convicted, and then they go through within 45 days. At that point, then we try to determine their risk and their needs with respect to treatment and education, vocational things like that. And then that goes into, which is called the initial prescriptive plan, which is what the parole board sees prior to the minimum term hearing, so that that helps the parole board understand what the person's level of risk is and what their needs might be.
So Tommy, I'm going to go back to my original question.
Okay.
I believe that we received some time ago the I think it was dated January 1st, 2024, the DCR new organizational charts.
Right.
And I was reviewing the facilities. Now, each facility, as you well know, has an operations section. And I noticed that the Neighbor Island jails, they were blank. Yeah, in terms
I'm sorry,
of.
Mike, I'm sorry, can you speak up, please? It's hard for me to hear you guys. It's like an echo on this end when you're speaking.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Hold on. We got new technology right now. We're learning how to navigate.
Okay.
So we received a copy of the 2024 January DCR organizational charts.
Okay.
As I was particularly interested in the operational sections of each of the facilities, and I noticed that some of the jails, that particular section or page was blank.
Okay.
Whereas Halava would list the facility superintendent and all his staff or her staff under. And I didn't see any positions identified in the jail operations sections of the Neighbor Island facilities. Can you follow up for me and see if that's been updated?
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I'll send it to Christian and she can disperse it to the, I'll send you the most recent approved organizational chart, and I'll take a look at it beforehand to make sure that issues are addressed in the jails and prisons. So you're talking about the maintenance superintendent and his or her staff, correct?
Yes.
The groundskeepers, the maintenance
Yes.
workers, the plumbers, electricians, that kind of thing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll do that. Okay.
Thank you, Tommy.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Mr. Johnson?
Yep.
This is Judge Brown.
Yep.
You just described the transition of organization to rehabilitation and the transition. How long do you think that's going to take? When will that be completed?
To be honest with you, it's going to take some time because it will require us to do a complete paradigm shift, not just in our programming, but with our the attitudes of our ACO staff and for some of our case managers. And I think with some of our vendors too, because they've been so used to operating in a paramilitary type structure and a punitive, what some might see as a punitive model. It is hard to get the case managers and to get the ACOs to understand the depth of the changes we have to go through, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to keep trying. I've already had 2 meetings, one meeting with Randy Pereira of HCEA and 2 meetings with Kalani Warner and all of his chief stewards from around the state regarding the paradigm shift and what the expectations of the corrections officer is, which is just to be human and to treat people with dignity and respect, and to also understand that and for the case managers that unfortunately sometimes they see themselves as part of security staff. Whereas really they should be focused on integrated case management, identifying what the needs and risk of this person is and making sure they get them in a sequential phasing process into the programs and not worry about writing them up for every little thing that goes on in the facility.
Yeah, I understand that institutional change, cultural change. I understand that institutional cultural change
Right.
is a long process, and I appreciate what you've just said. My question, though, specifically more to the point, is in terms of the organizational changes that you will make that will allow you to focus on the cultural sort of attitudes. When do you think, or do you have an estimate as to how long that will take to put that in place?
Well, the current organizational changes that I explained are with the RCO. That will be done hopefully by the end of this year. We are looking at the possibility of making some changes with the case managers and unit managers with respect to their supervision chain, and I'll explain that. Right now, the case managers and the unit managers, the CS1s and the CS2s, correction supervisor 1s and 2s, and even the program administrators actually report to the warden. Under our model, it may be better if those case managers and the unit managers report to the either the reentry coordination office or another entity in central office, so that the RCO office provides policy and training to the case managers. It's hard for them to do that when the case managers don't work for them, and we have to coordinate with each individual warden to get that done. So I'm thinking it's maybe better if we centralize, remove those staff folks from the wardens and put them under central office, and that way it'd be easy to provide the training because they'd be governed by one entity. That would require us to consult with HCEA, to speak with the employees, consult with HCEA, and then do a further reorganizational change. I think that is how we're leaning, because if we don't, we already see problems and some concerns with trying to get the case managers to attend some of the training and to provide the policy changes to them in a cohesive manner, because they're pulled in different directions, because they're given duties sometimes that are not case management functions by the facilities. Give you a case in point. Sometimes they're assisting in handing out canteen or mail. Well, that's not a case manager's function. The case manager's function is to manage the cases of the inmates and to try to get them into the programs and get them motivated to do better so we can have better outcomes. So I think that's part of our continuing evolution, for lack of a better term, that I think we didn't think of, to be honest with you, when we initially thought of separating the two departments, creating the DLE, changing, doing the paradigm shift. I think as we're going along, we're finding that may be an artificial barrier that's hindering us to some degree.
You already have transitional, or rather, training programs for the case managers set up?
We do. We have annual certifications. They have to be certified in certain things, which is the LSAR, the ACES, which we're going to lose, by the way. So Christian, we probably need to talk about that. The owner of the ACES, the Adult Substance Use Survey, is going to retire, and he's not going to leave it out there. So we're looking at the 2CAS instrument to see if we could have that as a replacement instrument now. So that's going to change our assessment protocols. He's only going to allow us to use that through December. So we've already started the 2CAS, we did a pilot project. It looks promising. And so I can have Dwayne go over those with you, Christian, the results of that. So that's going to change our assessment process somewhat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Tommy, thanks for being here as always. Your department has kuleana or jurisdiction over CoreCivic at Saguaro. Is that correct?
Yeah, we maintain the contract, and so we keep them to the scope of service of the contract, correct.
Okay, well, I read, and I was sorry to read it, that the Department of Justice out of DC and also locally is all over the Tennessee or National CoreCivic up there in the continent. Are you aware of that?
I saw the story, yes.
Yep. So I'm very interested because I may not be as strident about not having it up there if it works, because I went up there and had 40 hearings as a parole commissioner, but I really hope everybody reads the press release from the Department of Justice, realize this is a big, humongous deal. Maybe Kara or Kristen could put it on the in the chat here so people can read it. Because that accountability is important. And I know you don't, so you don't have direct control, but you're aware of what goes on at Saguaro, correct?
Right, so we have a employee on the ground there, a contract employee at the facility who makes sure the facilities follows the scope of services. We also send up a quarterly, what we call audit team, who audits the scope of services and then provides a report to me every quarter. And as I indicated before, I recently fined CoreCivic $68,000 late last year, I think it was, because they didn't maintain the appropriate staffing levels that we require in the contract. And so every quarter we send up experts in food service, medical care, case managers, security personnel. So we go over all those areas in the scope of services, and the reports are, I think they're posted online, so they're public record.
Good.
And any deficiencies, we follow back up with them in 30 days to make sure those deficiencies are addressed. The deficiency that has come up most is just like other correctional jurisdictions, is staffing. Like we're down 28% on our ACO staffing levels. Other jurisdictions face the same. CoreCivic was able to, at the Saguaro facility, get the position count up to about 92% of their authorized count by offering bonuses and transfer incentives to CoreCivic, and bonuses to new hires and transfer incentive to employees who wanted to transfer from other facilities. And some people were detached from other facilities to CoreCivic, to Saguaro, to bring the staffing levels back up.
And you've visited you've visited Saguaro before, correct? Several times.
Yeah,
Yep.
I try to get up there about twice a year.
Good.
Whenever there's a major incident, I go up there. During the last major incident where there was a murder of inmate Nickelbeck, I was up there within about 3 days. I think I was on the ground talking to the Eloy Police Department detectives, talking to our staff who we sent up there to do our investigation, and talking to their staff and looking at the video footage or what we could see of what happened, and looking at who the key players were and making sure that they were separated and they were being addressed by the facility.
Yep. Thank you as always, Tommy. Kristen put the report from DOJ in the chat. I encourage everyone to read it, certainly the commissioners. Okay.
It's a news release that you put up. I believe that it would be, if people are really interested in what the Department of Justice is doing, a link to their CRIPA investigations, because the CRIPA investigation letters spell out what they're finding wrong in these facilities. Now in Tennessee, they haven't done the investigative letter yet because they've just begun their investigation, but you get a real broad overview by going to the DOJ CRIPA website.
Well, I want to speak to that directly. DOJ doesn't tread lightly. They're there for a darn good reason. I don't know what it is. It's not just the local U.S. attorney. It's DOJ and the specialists from the civil rights. They have a whole section. So please read it, and thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
That's right.
Thank you, Tommy. We'll move on the agenda right now at this point to item number 7.
No, number 6, return of oversight coordinator.
6. Sorry, Kristen. We just wanted to have a real quick
Welcome back.
welcome back to Kristen. Give her a floor. We had both myself and her had a rough beginning in 2024. January, February, and March, going around to the neighbor islands, conducting a staff survey, doing our legislative journeys about the commission and the need for her position, and so forth and so forth. And little Cameron came in May, you know, a little early, but he's here now. And so we have a new baby and a new mommy. Yeah. Kristen, any words for us? You're on mute.
Thank you. No, I'm really glad to be back, and thank you for the shout out. My son did come 8 weeks early, and so we spent a month in the NICU, which was not ideal. But he's home, he's safe, he's healthy, which is all we could have asked for. So I'm really, really happy to be back and hit the ground running. I also just wanted to give a very quick shout out to Kara Kampani. Kara jumped into the oversight coordinator role with absolutely no preparation. The Friday that my son was born was actually the day that I was going to sit down with her and go through everything and put together a plan. So Kara, thank you so much for just jumping in head first, doing an outstanding job. I never had to worry about the state of the office once while I was gone, which was amazing. But yeah, so thank you, and it's great to be back.
Thank you, Kristen. It's great to have you back. We are transitioning her slowly so she can be home watching as well as be with us and do her duties as well. So great to have her back, Kristen. Item number 7 at this time is the overview of our OCCC facility tour and report. Carol?
Yes, so first of all, I don't think anyone's more excited to have Kristen back than me. I'm updating everyone on her return, how many days. So yeah, I'm thrilled that Kristen's back. We all are, and also really happy about Cameron and his health and well-being. So I'm gonna briefly go through the OCCC report. I'm just gonna highlight the recommendations and facility highlights, and I offer that the full report will be posted online. So for those who wanna dive in deeper, you can go right to our website under reports. So last month, the commission toured OCCC. We had a nice conversation with the warden there, staff, and people in custody. So I'm gonna go through 3 facility highlights that we found while on site. First, we were updated that OCCC is pursuing ACA accreditation, and that's the American Correctional Association accreditation. And the commission wanted to highlight this as a significant step in terms of aligning with national correctional standards. Secondly, they have recently implemented a cognitive behavioral therapy program, and this is specifically being offered to people on the max custody unit. And this is important because people in that unit generally don't get much out of cell time. They didn't get any programming time before. So this is a great program, a great pilot that started there, but also really important for this unit in particular. And then finally, we also learned that the facility began implementing FTOs, field training officers. So once people leave the academy, they're paired with different ACOs at the facility for on-the-job training. So yeah, the commission wanted to highlight those aspects of the facility. And then we want to, in terms of recommendations, we are reiterating here 3 recommendations that we made during our facility tour last year. So first is, and this is particularly important due to the ACA accreditation that OCCC is going for, allow for natural light by removing wood coverings from all cell windows. So the commission found wood covering on some of the cell windows. Some of that has been removed, but not all of it. So the recommendation is that the removing continue until all of those coverings are removed. Secondly, the restoration of contact visits. The commission made that recommendation last year, and that has not been implemented yet. We want to reiterate the importance of contact visits for rehabilitation efforts and just to maintain closer connections to family members and loved ones in the community. And then finally, just continued engagement with the criminal justice system. We recognize that OCCC is touring different justice system stakeholders and also members of the judiciary, and we just want that to continue. And then finally, the additional recommendations that we've included here are to expand programming opportunities at the facility. We understand that there are space limitations, and we still, the commission sees there's just too much idle time and not enough programming going on for people in custody there. So increase the opportunities for programming and also community partnerships in that same vein. Then secondly, when we were on site, one of the Sallyport gates was broken, so it was continuously open. There was some movement around getting parts and fixing it, but we really wanted to emphasize that as a priority, fixing that Sallyport gate for safety. Third, prioritize kitchen upgrades. So the kitchen was in rough shape when we were there. Their dishwasher wasn't working, so a trash can was being used for dishwashing. The ceiling tiles, we found mold on the ceiling tiles, and then also mold in some of the serving trays that people in custody eat off. So we highlighted that in the report and then made that recommendation here in terms of upgrades to the kitchen. Next, we heard when we were on site that the warden didn't have access to some of the confidential policies and procedures. So we recommend that wardens and facility leadership have access to all those procedures to ensure compliance. Next, we want to see furlough utilization expanded at OCCC. You've probably seen this in most of our jail reports. So one thing to highlight here is that OCCC does have the highest furlough numbers and highest furlough participation rate. And there's certainly an opportunity for more. Furlough here is around 60%, and we know how successful furlough is for reentry. So I'd like to see those numbers increase too. Just a few more here. Install shade for recreation cages in the holding unit. In the holding unit, there are cages outside for people to rec in, but there's no shade on it, so it gets really hot midday. So a shade would make a big difference for a time outside, especially for that population who only gets limited out of cell time. That's a recommendation there. And then we heard a few concerns from people in custody and staff. One was around roaches in cells, and then second was around difficulty accessing bail calls. So we're requesting that the facility investigate and address those concerns. Finally, in the holding unit in disciplinary segregation, we received word that people in that unit don't have regular access to books or reading material, legal calls, mail, or rec in the holding unit. And I wanted to highlight that because those are all ACA standards too. So as OCCC is moving toward that ACA accreditation, those will need to be aligned also. And then finally, this is a system-wide recommendation. When we looked at the numbers from this facility, we found that there were 220 people in custody, and that's about 20% of the population of OCCC that were pre-trial on felony charges for more than 6 months. So we'll be following up with the broader justice stakeholders on Oahu, but that is certainly an opportunity to decrease the overcrowding that we see in terms of decreasing pretrial times. And one final note on overcrowding is that the occupancy rate was at 113 when we were there, but it's different depending on the unit. So some units, modules, and some dormitory units are over that capacity, and then furloughs under that capacity. So there is still overcrowding at the facility, and we're certainly interested in decreasing that. And that's what I have for our OCCC visit.
Any questions for Kara on the OCCC visit? Thank you, commissioners who took part in that. We'll continue to, we'll make some further comments on some of the other agenda items on the way down on those reports. But as we move on to the amended item on the agenda, interim capacity of our facilities, Martha.
Okay, at our last meeting, we talked about that one of the responsibilities of the commission is to come up with the capacities of the facilities. This was a function that was taken over from the Hawaiʻi Correctional System from the Population Management Commission. And the last time that this was done was in 2001, which means these numbers are very out of date. And the example I can give you today is Module 4 is listed in the report as having a capacity of 24 and a population of 62. The capacity of 24 is from 2001 and was due to a different use of the module at that time. At that time, module 4 was the housing unit for severe and chronically mentally ill inmates. 6 of the cells were used for suicide watch, not housing. The remaining 24 cells had 1 inmate assigned, each due to a type of inmate that was housed there. In fact, there are 30 cells in that module. The module is now used as general population for women, and for our other modules that have general population, it is double celling. So what I would like to recommend to the commission is that we do an interim capacity report that will only be looking at housing units. It will not be looking at, is the kitchen large enough to support this? Is the sewer large enough to support this? We don't have the ability to do that right now. But to be fair to the facilities, we must be reflecting how they are currently using their space. So I'm recommending that we take that on as one of our projects, and I'm willing to participate with that. I was responsible for the 2001 report, but I'm hoping another commissioner will step up and join me in this effort.
Any questions for Martha on the interim capacity or any, what does it mean for the overall DCR programming? Any questions?
So Tommy, in doing this, I'm gonna ask if I can come downtown and meet with your CIP coordinator and just look at some of the old plans to make sure I have the correct size of some of the living areas.
Martha, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would like to come down and meet with your CIP coordinator and go through some of the plans of the facilities to make sure I have accurate measurements of things like day rooms and cells and stuff like that.
Okay, for every facility? I thought we provided that already, but okay.
It will be for every facility, yes, and then we will be visiting every facility also. But again, we're only looking at the living units. We're not gonna be looking at the kitchen and the laundry and medical to see whether it can support the population the living units can house.
Okay. Okay, so I want to make it clear. So you want the square footage of the cells and recreation areas, program areas, or just the cells?
It's the living units, so it
Got it.
include the day rooms of the living units.
Got it. Okay.
And then I need to, be aware of how many toilets, sinks, showers are available. But this is gonna be followed up by a visit then, because then we have to see how many cells are actually usable. As I recall last year when we were at OCCC, Module 19 had 5 cells that could not house inmates. They were in such disrepair. So we need to incorporate that also into this interim report.
That's fine, but I would ask the commission to also support our request for CIP and repair and maintenance. We'll go in every year and we'll ask for $10 million for repair and maintenance. We might get half of that. The problem with that is, as you guys know, the facilities are old and antiquated, and so we're constantly playing whack-a-mole with emergencies that come up. We have a preventive maintenance plan. We try to lay out the funds for those plans, but because we don't get the money we ask for, then when an emergency comes up, we take the money we plan for preventive maintenance and cover the emergency. So we'll give the commission whatever you guys want. You're welcome to go to any facility, as you know. So I'll make sure we have that. So Martha, I will make the coordination with Christian, and then she can she can talk to you, and we'll put you in touch with the CIP staff. You can directly coordinate with them to get the information if you want. And then whatever they pass to you, I would only ask that you share with the commission members, and I'll get a copy of it as well. Fair enough?
Okay, and yeah, we just want to make sure we're reflecting actually what your capacity is within those facilities. I think Module 4 is a perfect example where it is woefully underestimating how many people can fit in Module 4 given its current use.
And just one final note that I want to throw out there for everyone, for the commissioners. In this last year and a half, as we have toured the facilities, we have a variety of cell space, I'll say it that way, throughout the correctional facilities throughout the state, from single bunk, double bunk, four bunk, triple bunk, and 4 bunks. These are actual bunks in the cells. So,
Well, the floor a lot too.
yeah, but what I'm saying is we want to look at a cell, we want to look at the bunk in there, and is it the appropriate amount of bunks for the cell space, and are we counting it accordingly? We have come across in some of the facility housing units that are shut down, not currently being used. Yeah, that was a shock for us. So we want to really get a grasp on what are the actual beds that we have, what are being used, what are not being used, and what are being used inappropriately. Yeah, so because we're not talking about floor space, we're just talking about what is the cell designed for. Yeah, and so even for myself, as long as I've been in the system, and I saw cells in Maui that had 4 bunks in them. I've seen cells in Kauai jail that had 4 bunks in them. I've never seen that before. So we just want to do an assessment of our cell space and our bunks, and so we can get a more accurate reading of our bed capacity.
And Tommy, we most certainly do support your repair and maintenance budget. And when we had our informational hearing in Representative Thomas's, the House Judiciary Committee, that's one of the things that we stress, that the department is not provided with adequate funds to maintain those facilities.
Commissioners, and we'll talk more about that as well. Commissioners, are there any other questions for Martha on this agenda item? We'll go ahead, Tommy, and move forward with some kind of plan with our staff, and we'll present it to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Item number 8, commissioners, item number 9, new number 9, commissioners' positions on new jail.
Oh, yeah, it's number 8.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. We just really wanted to throw that in there. We were being questioned on our position. Some of you remember earlier, Ted Sakai had written our position.
paper,
Paper about 5 years ago.
Not 5 years ago. We only met 4 years ago.
For 1920, okay, sorry.
So maybe
4 years, 3 or 4 years ago, when we started going to the legislature. And I believe, and if Martha can correct me at this time, is that we understand that OCCC needs to be replaced.
yes,
Yeah.
we agree with that.
But what we also, as a commission, talked about at that time was the need for more collaboration among systems for system change. Yeah, the entities that feed DCR, how do we work together so that we can lower the numbers that are being or heading toward our jails, the reentry effort, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where we are right now. We wanted to revisit it and see how, if we need to change our position, and then have a discussion for whether we're going to maintain our position, or whether we understand that OCCC needs to be replaced based on its current condition and the amount of offenders that they have. But we also want to stress highly the need for our state leaders to really try to collaborate in order to make a system that actually works in terms of moving offenders through a continuum of care.
Well, I believe that Carrie Ann very well articulated what we are looking for, and that is, as a state, we need to be looking at alternatives to incarceration, especially jail incarceration. When people are held pretrial in jail because they cannot afford the bail to get out, if they are convicted, they are more likely to get an incarceration sentence because they don't have a history of being in the community and having a job. So it's a never-ending cycle, and we really think that this needs to be taken care of. And so in the past, our recommendation has been, we know that OCCC has to be replaced, but we do not agree with the size that is being proposed. We believe it can be reduced if the state introduces some of these alternatives. And then we also want to ensure that there is adequate programming provided. Tommy, you mentioned that with the jail population, it's harder to provide programming, but many jails throughout the United States do programming for pretrial inmates. And the benefit of things such as tabs tablets have allowed them to like participate in getting a GED, may not complete it, but at least they can get started. So there have been advances made technology where you no longer have to have a class for a GED, but everybody can be on their own path and complete in their own time. And some will be able to complete while they're in jail. So we want to ensure there's a lot of activity taking place at this new jail.
Any questions, commissioners? I often use as a model, Mark, the journey that you took in the building of the Kapolei jail. Yeah, and the fact of all the money that was spent to build this 30-bed secured structure for our youth, at the same time that we started reforming the system. Yeah, and so when you look at this new jail, state-of-the-art jail with all its whistles and tweaks, I believe the current population today is 7. Yeah, and that's because the system, a lot of effort by multiple agencies were placed in creating a continuum of care for diversion for our youth, is why the numbers in the jail is even lower than what's incarcerated at the Hawaiʻi Youth Correctional Facility, which today is only 21.
And that came because the judiciary led this effort.
Right.
The judiciary was responsible for the detention center, and they led the effort. It would not have happened without the judiciary leading the effort.
And the fact that child welfare, child analysis, mental health, and the Office of Youth Service provided a foundation of programs for the diversion to occur. And that is what we're looking at as a model, and how do we, as complex as the adult system is, it's still the same players, and how do we get everybody up and running in a manner that made the Hawaii's youth system a national model. So.
And Mark Browning is to be credited with a lot of this as the leader there in making this happen, because at that time I was the executive director of the Office of Youth Services when this was getting started. And it was very gratifying to be part of it. So thank you, Mark.
You're muted, Mark.
Mark, you're muted.
I was going to say that I think one of the mistakes that was made in the building of the detention center, which was built for at least 70 kids, I think, and never built for the needs of the children that come into the system or came into the system and still coming into the system. What was the fact that when the state built that facility, there was no dialogue or coordination amongst with the judiciary or with various different other stakeholders within the system. And so, for example, when the judges moved to Kapolei and first got a chance to see that facility, we were shocked by what it looked like. I think it was, there were, one of the consequences is that it was a total waste. Much of it was a waste of money. That was one. 2, it wasn't built for the needs of kids. And 3, I think that one of the problems has been since that time is the judiciary's effort to take that facility and make it to best as possible, more conducive to what the whole sort of structure is. But the whole point being that unless in the building of this particular jail, unless people are working together, the various different stakeholders, unless there's a coordination in terms of moving holistically towards reform, it's not going to work out well for us. So I think it's a point well taken.
Thank you. I think we're all on the same page right now. And Kristen, I know you're taking notes. Well, we'll put something in more formal writing on how we express that stance.
Mark?
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
My recollection was that we're at a pause. Capital P-A-U-S-E, not P-A-W-S. And for me, it's getting more and more to be a hard pause. And we need a campus that's more horizontal and therapeutic, exactly what Tommy's saying, correction and rehabilitation. I would hate to see another silo 4 stories tall that costs a bunch of money, and then the judges unfortunately will fill it up. So if we build something, it should be things that judges want to fill up. And I'm trying to echo as best I can what my friend Mark Browning says. But am I correct that we're at a pause now? Or do we have to reaffirm that?
When you say who's at a pause, the commission or the department?
The commission. The department looks like it's straight ahead, Fred, but I think we're at a pause, and I'm getting closer to a hard pause because I'm worried.
I'm sorry, Mike, I don't quite understand what you mean by the commission being at a pause. I think that we've stated our position, which is we support replacing OCCC, and we express concern about the size and the programming that will take place there.
Well, my recollection is we wanted a pause, but anyway, maybe I don't understand.
I understand what you're saying, Michael.
There was a pause, but the pause was really imposed by the legislature when they halted funding. And that was bigger than just a new OCCC. I think the legislature was trying to figure out how they're going to fund the stadium, OCCC, and other projects, and they were just reaching too far. So I believe they did put a pause on funding.
Well, my concern is whether the train is leaving the station with all these RFPs and we're going down that road, and we're going to hear later on, too late, sorry. But for me, what I remember is a pause, P-A-U-S-E. And that means we got to figure out who's going to go there first. And for me, it's more of a campus, exactly what Tommy talked about, rehabilitation.
Okay.
Okay, we'll follow up on that. I'm wondering whether or not, because we said we wanted to support the building and replacement of OCCC, but we want to pause until we can fix the system. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a, this is Mark Browning. I think it's okay to take the position that we are in favor of a OCCC being replaced, but at the same time, not fully on board with replacement unless we have a better idea as to what it's going to look like, what the cultural institutional changes that are going to happen, that need to happen to make it the kind of place that is consistent with rehabilitation and reentry. And that requires a bigger plan than just building a jail. It requires a whole sort of holistic look at the infrastructure that's going to surround this place. I mean, you just build it, it's going to look like what, you know, it's going to be what it is, and it's not going to be. That's what happened actually with the detention center. I mean, as a matter of fact, I don't think there was any thought given to the whole process of reform and the whole idea of having to find ways to, as a result, as a consequence, to improve the community as a whole.
All said, Mark.
You know, Mark, going back 50 years ago, when we had the correctional master plan, that was developed in concert with the total rewrite of the penal code. And the Hawaiʻi penal code, the new penal code became effective January 1st of 1973. And that's just when we started building our CCCs. And those decisions were made together on a totally different philosophy. By the time OCCC opened in 1980, that philosophy had already changed when it came to sentencing and pretrial detention. So the state was successful one time in trying to plan together, but it fell apart so quickly.
Yep. I just know what happened. Take example HYCF, for instance. When they built HYCF, it was built with the idea there would be step-down services for that facility, and that didn't happen. And before Mark Patterson took over, the population, and it does look like a prison, the population, well, at some point after they built it, they never followed through with the step-down services. And as a result, the population went up to 60, 70, 90 for a capacity, basically a facility that was supposed to house maybe 30 to 40 kids.
Mark, when we transferred the youth facility in 1991 from the adult system to the newly created Office of Youth Services, we had between 30 and 35 kids there. We had done a great effort and brought the population down by more than half in the late 80s into the early 90s.
Yep.
And Wayne Matsuo was able to keep it down. It's unfortunately when Wayne, due to health, had to leave, and a new administrator came in who didn't even know how to pull off what Wayne was accomplishing. And that's, so when I returned in 2006, the population was about 80.
Right. Right, that's my point.
And we were under a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice.
Yeah, I know, I was there, I remember. But my point being is that there was nothing from an institutional standpoint, from a legal standpoint, at least law, that instituted all these various things that kept changes in place that needed to stay. And therefore, without the institutional mandates, it was so easy to switch, and things got to where we ended up with a consent decree. But anyway, I just wanted to re-echo, rather just join in with Mike Town in suggesting that it's something to think about.
And this also stresses the importance of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the right leaders in place, you can accomplish these things. Yeah.
And I just wanted to just real quick and want to move on and just to share, when we opened Halawa in 1987, that was, again, state of the art, all the whistles, great facility, solved the problems at OCCC or the old Oahu prison, and transfer all those individuals to Halawa. And then by 1995, it was triple bunked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's another example of not working the system,
right?
Building these mega structures. When we look at the mistake, what is the mistake of planning Halawa, building Halawa, and not investing in the system? The mistake is Arizona. Yeah. Since 1996. Now, well, we were in many states before we got to Arizona, but our mainland facilities are a mistake of the lack of planning the system in 1987 or in the mid 80s. Yeah. So we want to know if we don't change the system, we build the facility, what will be the mistake of that construction? So I think we're on the same page. I think Kristen took a lot of notes. We're starting to pilot on now, Kristen. So welcome back, and we'll put together some kind of statement, and we'll continue to have this discussion. So thank you, commissioners, for reassessing our stance on the new jail and how we move forward.
Mark,
Yes,
Mark,
Mike?
one brief thing. I'd like an answer to the RFP thing, where we are in the continuum of planning for the new jail. Because if the train has left the station, I want to know about it. For me, I'm as I said, I'm more at a hard pause mode. But maybe the commission can take a position, write a letter on it again. I thought we'd already taken a position.
We had, yes.
I agree with getting the information about the RFP.
Tommy, is that something you can respond to right now?
Well, the train hasn't left the station. DAGS plans to issue the RFP and the RFI at the same time in August of next year. That's part of the public discussion we've been having and part of the presentations we provided at the neighborhood board meetings, to the legislature. The project will be some type of PT project where the state will kind of a lease buyback. A developer will build it and maintain it, but we will operate it with state employees, transfer people from the current OCCC to the new facility once the facility is built. We're looking at direct supervision within the facility, but for those populations that are stable, then it's indirect supervision, meaning it won't be so staff intensive. We're looking at AI, facial recognition technology, things like that in the facility to keep track of people in the facility, both inmates and staff. There is no set design yet because that's what the developer will come in and do. We do have an idea of the numbers, the 1,300 beds, 250 of them will be re-entry type beds where if someone has hiccups on probation or parole, instead of sending them back to a hard bed at Halawa that costs us $258 a day, then we would put them in a soft bed, do a reassessment to try to get them back out as soon as possible before they lose that tenuous connectivity to their family and their employment. The remaining of the bed space will be for the pretrial population, the jail population, and the other populations I mentioned earlier. We do intend to have a work furlough component out of that facility, in addition to keep the current Lamaka facility so that we can get more people out downstream quicker to the work furlough. Because right now, work furlough is underutilized, and so we're doing, this is off the subject some, but you should know what we're doing. We have Professor Janet Davis from Chaminade University contracted her to look at our classification system because I suspect we were overclassifying people, meaning that I think we were keeping people in higher level beds than they should for longer periods of time than they should be there. So I'll give you an example. If someone commits a certain misconduct, the sanction is 18 months. Well, I personally think you got to go back and review every 6 months how the person is doing, have they adjusted, and if they have, then why can't we move them downstream faster? Another thing I told you about we changed was if someone does an escape to, which is they walk away from work furlough, they're not going over the fence, then the punishment is up to 5 years in prison, but the classification policy showed 7 years at a medium security facility. Well, if that's the case, you're not giving a person any daylight, so why shouldn't they be a management problem for us? So we're looking at changing that to 3 to 3.5 years, which is about the national average, but we haven't decided yet. I'm gonna try to go with the lower end, to be perfectly frank, because I think we should move people downstream as quickly as possible when they qualify so that we can get them to the minimum security facilities. Right now, Waiawa's at 60 or 70%. Kulani, our other minimum security facility, is probably around 40 or 50%. So a lot of that has to do with our return from the mainland policy. So we're looking at that policy to see why do we not return them until 36 months? Why can't we return them at 48 months if they otherwise qualify? So if they do, then we can fill those minimum security beds at those facilities, lessen the number of inmates we have on the mainland, and at the same time move people downstream faster. And that was off the subject some, but I wanted you guys to know the bigger picture of what we're looking at trying to do. With respect to OCCC, the new OCCC, because it is a jail, it will not be like a prison where we'll have a lot of programming. Again, I think we should try to concentrate our limited resources on those folks who are sentenced misdemeanors who, as someone indicated earlier, we can try to get them through the GED program using the tablets, but someone that's with us for a weekend or 5 days, it's hard for us to do an assessment and try to address their needs. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to do some kind of referral for services. So these are the kind of things we're flushing out that I will be talking to Christian about, because she may have ideas of some things that happen on the mainland and other facilities, and we'll look at other jurisdictions to see. I think there are valid concerns with respect to in-cell time versus out-of-cell time. I think there's valid concerns with respect to too much idleness in the facilities, but a lot of it has to do with our staffing issues. So that's why we're looking at building a more efficient facility where, like, I'll give you a current example. The current staff complement for ACOs at OCCC is 435. If we can reduce that number substantially down without compromising safety and security, two things will happen. We'll be able to run a facility more efficiently for a less annual cost. Your biggest cost in the facilities is your staff salary costs. No one will lose their job, because if the ACO complement at a new facility is, say, 300 instead of 420, 435, we take those bodies and fill all our vacancies in the other Oahu facilities, which in turn cut down on our overall overtime and less stress for the staff because they're not working 16, 24 hours at a time. So that is the thinking for the new facility, to make it as efficiently built as possible without compromising safety and security, but at the same time, try to incorporate some type of programming to facilities that will fit the needs of those offenders and the connectivity back to the community. That's not going to be hard, it's not going to be cheap, and it's not going to be an easy sell. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try. I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure if it does or not. I gave a lot of information because there's a lot of different things we're trying to do at different levels to try to bring this project together. But I can tell you this, every year we wait, construction escalation costs were at 8 to 12%. It's stabilized out now to 5 to 12% on $1 billion project. You're looking at a considerable amount of money, $50 to $80 million a year for when every year we delay. And the conditions at OCCC only get worse.
That's why
That's
it's
all I have.
crucial.
I'll step off my soapbox for now.
No, thank you, Tommy. And we hear you, we agree with you, and we're waiting for these system leaders to get together and help resolve those problems. Yeah, so, thank you. Did you want to say something, Mark? No, you good? Kristen?
Yeah, I just, you know, I just wanted to comment on one brief thing, Tommy, that you mentioned. My only concern with the idea of having less staff at the jails is that my understanding is that that would take away from like the direct supervision model, where staff can really work hand in hand with people in custody and, you know, work directly with them. My understanding at least is that when there's less staff, it kind of creates more of a, you know, I'm going to step back here and just watch an entire module, but not really interact and not really have those rehabilitative relationships. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as maybe like food for thought, that I totally appreciate what you're saying. And the staffing crisis is very, very real. And I don't want to take away from that. But I think as far as the overall picture for the rehabilitative model, you know, it's just something to consider.
Yeah.
And that is an issue that we brought up with the warden at OCCC when we were there, direct versus indirect supervision. I think we made it clear that we are in favor of direct supervision.
So we're clear, when I say indirect supervision, we're looking at the 640 plus that are stabilized, that are general population. And when I say indirect supervision model, that is for the corrections officers, not for the case managers. There'll be no less intensive case management. It's just that one corrections officer would run the control station for 5 smaller finger modules that go around. That's one of the designs we looked at. We haven't settled on it yet. And then you have the floor officers still there in the modules doing what they have to do, making sure they get the rec, making sure all those things happen within that housing unit, if you will. So I think, so for the people who are just coming in, for those that are in admin or disciplinary segregation or treatment beds, then the complement would be a normal ACO complement. So we're talking about that population that's stabilized that can safely have less ACO interaction without less case management interaction. Okay.
So what do you consider the unstabilized population?
Well, those that just come in that are detoxing, those that have recent misconducts that are in administrative, that are in disciplinary segregation, those inmates that have recent disciplinary issues, those would be the, not unstable is probably an inappropriate term, but it would be those populations of inmates that we believe would need direct supervision in order to cut down on incidents of violence in the facilities and to make sure that the inmate themselves don't pose a risk to themselves or others. So it wouldn't cut down on like the safety of suicide watchers for sure. It wouldn't cut down on, hopefully, it won't cut down on any kind of recreation time, because by having contained units with a recreation module in the unit itself, it's easier for the inmates to get to rec without having to stop movement from moving one inmate from one module to another. So that's a more efficient way to operate. I think our challenge would be to make sure that there's fresh air, sunlight, those kind of things in the recreational area so they can get out. One of the things that Kara mentioned earlier was There should be some type of cover outside at OCCC for some of the rec yards, but you have to understand the towers have to be able to look down into the yards to see what's going on as well. So we have to kind of balance the comfort of those in custody with the safety and security of the facility and the good governance of the operations of the facility. So that being said, there can be types of canopies put over that can be seen through, but also that at the same time block the UV rays of the sun. So those are the kind of things we look at as a compromise. Okay.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, commissioners, for your comments. I'm gonna go ahead and, as the chair, move our agenda forward.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I gotta go, Mark, in the commission. So if anything comes up, you guys want to email me, please do. I already sent the updated org charts and functional statements, Mark. Christian has them. I sent them to you as well. When I get off here, I'm gonna go talk to the CIP folks and get on what Martha asked for, and we'll start that process rolling, okay?
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. And welcome back, Christian.
I wanted to talk real quick with the commissioners about our facility tours. We're about a year and a half, Kristen, in doing these tours as commission, going to the Neighbor Islands, having meetings, visiting the jails, visiting all the facilities on Oahu. And it is an overwhelming task when we go in there, and because there's a lot to see, you know. And some of us, me and Martha go in there, we may see from our correctional background, and when the two judges go in, you probably not seen what you've seen when you go into those jails as used to as we are from the correctional field. But I just want to talk about with you folks, when we come up with these recommendations, when we come up with these reports, there is actually a matrix, or what's the best way to say it, Christian? An Excel sheet of all the recommendations that we have stated to the department to fix, and then we date them when they have been fixed, and then if they have not, then we have to follow up. So it's getting to be pretty lengthy right now, and we want to. I was talking to Christian saying, you know, we want to be a little focused. We want to see everything, but we want to be focused so we can look at making those recommendations that will help in operational change, program change, housing changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And how best can we do that as a group when we go into these facilities? Be a little bit more structured in our work so that we can start knocking off the long list of recommendations that we have, as well as adding to it. Right now, we've just been going off of going in, seeing, coming out, and nothing really written on what do I say?
Okay, Kristen and I have talked about this in the past. Again, Mark and I, and when Ted was with us, we are very familiar with correctional facilities. We're able to look at it with certain eyes. And then we have additional members come on, and now we have 3 retired judges with us. And what Kristen and I talked about was giving a little bit more like a pocket-sized guide of the type of things you're gonna look at. Like Mark noticed right away the dirty ceiling tiles in the kitchen, but you know, quick things like that. I do not want to be cutting back on what we're doing though, even though the list gets long. It's not our job to make it shorter. It's our job to make sure we're following up on them.
What I'm saying is we want to make recommendations that can strategize major change. Yeah, we want to make recommendations that make systemic changes within the operations of the facility, its programming, and its maintenance. And that's what I mean, just so that we know, and when we go in that facility, we have a systemic view of what the problems we are seeing.
Yeah, I agree.
For example, and I'll blend item 11 with this conversation. When you look at the operational problems in all our jails in terms of maintenance, yeah, things falling apart, things not working, plumbing, electricity, roof leaking, all of those things, you need to look at, and you heard me earlier in the meeting, ask Tommy, what is the size of your operational staff?
Mm.
Yeah, and what are the actual positions that you have in there? Now, our major facilities, when I say major, I'm mostly talking about OCCC and Halawa. They have what we call facility superintendents. Yeah, they're an administrative position, an administrator that manages a whole operational section and really does all the procurement, all the preventive maintenance planning, and he's basically an administrator. And under him, he has all his building maintenance, his plumbers, his mechanics, everything he needs to fix the facility, as well as the cooks, yeah, in the kitchen. Now, some of our jails don't have that position, yeah, and the neighbor islands. And so what they have is a building maintenance individual who's supposed to be fixing stuff and supervising work lines, who's also now doing administrative stuff when he's supposed to be ordering supplies, making contracts, putting out RFPs. And then if he's doing that, then nobody's fixing the facility. So how do we go in there, look at the operation of concern, and then help Tommy to develop? You need to fatten your operational personnel in these jails so that they can fix their problems. Yeah, you have lower level positions doing higher level of work without the pay. Yeah, and so that's how one way we can support the maintenance or the current or problems. When we go in there, we see, you know, I literally went into the Kauai's kitchen. I was afraid I was gonna fall through the roof. I mean, fall through the floor. You know, I've never seen that before. And that's a serious problem, but it's a systemic problem because obviously nobody knows what to do. Yeah, because they don't have the administrator pushing for those issues to be resolved. Yeah, and this is the superintendent, operational superintendent works for the warden. Yeah, because the warden can't be everywhere else. That's the expert in the management of that facility. So that's my concern. That's my eyes. You know, Martha can go in there, she can see classification issues, right? You know, she can see programmatic issues. Yeah. When Judge Ibarra goes into the law library, he has tons of questions for the librarian and the legal access for every offender that comes in there. So every aspect of when we go in there, when we go and visit like Cashbox or Keolaula in the women's facility or other programs that are in the facility, we can ask direct questions to understand whether or not it's that system in there is working. Chapel services, you know, et cetera, program. Yeah. So I think I just wanted to bring that up as a concern. I don't think I want to do less than what we're doing now, but we want to start looking at our facility tours and how we can change system. Yeah, and the way things are being operated. Okay. And so that was my discussion. Anything else? Okay. All right.
Could I add to that a little bit, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, like, I totally agree. I think there's a lot of value in putting more structure into the tours. The other piece is that I think it adds accountability on what we're recommending and posting, because I totally hear you, Martha, in that we shouldn't recommend less, because if it needs to be recommended, it needs to be recommended. The problem though is like we're getting to the point now where I haven't counted recently, but we probably have over 75 recommendations maybe, and it's difficult for me at this point to even keep up with what's been done or what hasn't. And so I don't think this is something that we necessarily need to change immediately, but just something to keep in mind, because the other piece of this is that as we're bringing in new staff, which we'll be posting our investigator position soon, so bear with me on that. But they'll be able to look into like topic specific issues. And so, you know, if the judges are concerned about law library access, right, like they can do a very specific law library access report based on all of the facilities collectively. So just some different ideas there of, you know, ways that we can look at things. But yeah, the recommendations, my concern is that if we're putting out recommendations but not following up on them, then it kind of takes away from the value, I think, and the accountability of the recommendation. So I just wanted to add in that piece as well.
Well, we'll continue the discussion, and you know, I'll continue having discussions with Christian to talk about how that can look further. but I really want to make our tours worthwhile in terms of causing much needed change in the way we these facilities operate. So thank you for that discussion. I want to turn it over to Kara to give her last Oversight Coordinator interim report. She's done a great job, only being with the commission for a year, and she got thrown into this temporary position, and I'm so proud of her. Kara?
Thank you, thank you. So first, for the daughter of Michael Hughes that shared before, she's still on? No. Anyway, I just wanted to share with the commissioners that I, in our office, has been in communication with Mr. Michael Hughes for almost a year now. He submitted a proposal for a lifers and a long timers program at Saguaro. And it's very thoroughly researched, it's very thoroughly thought out. And I've had different conversations with him while legal calls while he's at Saguaro. And I just wanted to share with Mike Town, he's not looking for a reduction of minimum because his sentence is life without the possibility of parole, but he is going to submit paperwork for a commutation. And every single time I've talked to Mr. Hughes, he's never once talked about himself. He's always concerned about the other lifers and long timers at Saguaro and how to better support them. So I just wanted to share that we do have a connection at the office with Mr. Hughes too. So for the Oversight Coordinator report, I'm going to skip over the sections that are included in this month's agenda or that have already been discussed. So in terms of deaths in custody, there have been no new deaths in custody reported to the Commission since our last Oversight Coordinator report in July. I have some updates on the new jail from the staffing side. So I think as most people know, the University of Hawaiʻi Community Design Center has partnered with DCR to engage community members and stakeholders around the new jail. And there have been 2 events in the past month. Mike Town was at one of them, and then our staff was at both. And I just wanted to say that they've really engaged people throughout this process, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the report from the Community Design Center and the outcomes are incorporated into the new jail and the planning process. I know Bob and Kat have been at all those meetings too. So the community has many things to say about this, and we're looking forward to that final report and then seeing how it's actually incorporated and utilized throughout the remainder of the process. In terms of our office, there's 2 main reports we're working on, and now that we have our full team back, we'll be able to really dive back in, and that's our staffing survey and report, and then our reentry report. So I'm happy now that Kristen's back, I'll be able to really focus on the reentry report, and I know Kristen and I have been discussing the correctional staff survey and report too. And then my last update is about the House Concurrent Resolution 23 Task Force. We had a meeting last month where the different task force members really discussed the charge of the task force in terms of would justice be better served by removing the minimum setting authority from HPA, and additionally any adjustments or shifts to the current system. So that is available on our YouTube channel, and our next meeting is in September, where we'll have some data presentations from the Council for State Governments and the Criminal Justice Research Institute here in Hawaii. Finally, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Mark and the commissioners and George and the community for all your support as I stepped into this role temporarily. And then also thank you to Tommy and Sana and Pam for their assistance over the past few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions for Carol's report, commissioners? Hearing none. Mike, item number 13 is the expungent. Did you want to mention anything on that?
Mike Town. I think he put his phone down.
Yeah, Mike might be he might be in a different hearing. I know he had to step away at some point.
Okay, let's skip over that for right now. The Homeless Reentry Service Network item. Is that what you're giving me, Chaz? Okay.
So for this item, oh, sorry, Mark.
Go ahead, Kristen.
I was just gonna introduce Chaz Williams. Chaz Williams was really excited to present to the commission today about his creation of the Homeless Reentry Service Network and where it's at this point. And so he created a PowerPoint that we will get up and running. And Chaz, we're just really excited and happy to have you. Thank you for being here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Patterson, commissioners, staff, and the general public. Thank you for having me today. And welcome back, Kristen. Good to see you. I'm in the process now of actually coming online here to be able to present this presentation to you. I have to admit I'm not very good at this technology stuff, so we'll try our best to make sure the information gets to you. I want to introduce you today to a new program that we're starting in October of this year, based on assisting one of the populations I'm most concerned about in my career, and that is those people who are reaching the end of their term. And I'm trying to address a problem here that we have uniquely in Hawaii, which is the fact that in our state, we have a dual problem. And that dual problem is the fact that we deal both with people who are homeless and with people who have reached the end of their term and therefore are leaving corrections to be on their own. And when I say on their own, I truly mean on their own. So let me set up these slides. If I can do that. It doesn't seem to be, oh, there we go.
We share it, George.
I'm going to share with you our design, first of all, for this program. We put a lot of time into considering what it is that we're trying to achieve with this population. So I hope that you can see on your screen now the program design that we laid out for this particular project. This is called the Homeless Reentry Service Network. And here is what we're doing. Follow me down the left-hand side of this particular diagram, and you'll see how the person proceeds through the correctional system in their journey. We're starting here at lockup. We're skipping over the arrest and misdemeanor population, and we're looking at those people who are felony convicts, and they are going to our 3 on this island, which is where our program is based, prisons, Palava, Waiava, and the Women's Correctional Center. When their time there in those 3 facilities is completed, they are then going to go to either furlough. If it's men, it's O-Triple-C Lamaka and Module 20. If it's women, it's Project Bridge at that facility. If they're fortunate enough to get through those particular intercepts, then they go to parole, or they go for men to Makana Okeakua, for women Fernhurst. Now, after that, when they have completed parole in either of those places or in the community, then they are what we call free. Free means that they've been discharged from all supervision and they're no longer on parole or probation or in a situation in the community where they're being supervised. Now, knowing that, here's the problem. We are concentrating now on this particular part of the model. These men and women are actually maxed out. They're leaving the facility because they've reached the end of their term. You will notice I placed them in a different part of this particular model because they don't go through this particular process. When they reach the end of their term, they are immediately discharged. And they're discharged regardless of their circumstances inside are outside the prison. We already know that about 34%, 35% of our people are homeless when they enter the facility. Nothing has changed except now that people are inside, there are more of them that are leaving, and they are also homeless. So we have a bad problem with this because our jurisdiction has one of the worst homeless problems. We have about 4% if we look at how this problem has impacted us per capita. And we also have a very bad problem with our recidivism rate here with our local population. So we know that former prisoners who have been released find themselves without resources, without supervision, without a reentry plan, because they're going neither on parole or probation. They're leaving the facility with no particular way that they've had planning for what they're facing. And that could be destitution, where they have no home to go to, no family, no job, no money. And so they're forced to do things like make it on the street. And that means that they're joining, in many cases, homeless camps that are themselves beginning to bulge at the seams. This is really intolerable. We have to do something about this. So let's go back to something that's very important for us to understand, that in people who are maxing out, they have the highest recidivism rate among all released prisoners, both probationers and parolees. This problem has persisted from the beginning of the time in 2005, 2006, when we began to keep these statistics, all the way up through the present day. They have consistently been the highest recidivists in our entire system. Since 2005, the recidivism rate has gone down, but we have no reason to rejoice in this because even though it's gone down 10.7%, we still haven't reached the goal for that particular cohort, which is a 30% recidivism reduction from 2005. We find this intolerable, so let's return back to the model to see what we're doing about it. We know that these people go directly into discharge when they're released with no planning and no prior assessment. But here's what we're presenting. We are creating a homeless reentry service network safety net. This means that we're engaging community efforts in programs that are already up and running, those who may be cutting edge, those who may be traditional, to actually organize into a group that will be able to serve this particular population when it comes out. Now, this may sound willy-nilly, and it would be if it weren't for the fact that we're making organizational crossroads into this population to be able to organize that group of agencies that are serving these people. How do we know that this is effective or it might work? Well, prior to actually starting this effort, we participated in resource fairs. These resource fairs were organized by Barbara Gatewood, one of our chaplains who is attached to the actual Volunteer program. And when we went to these fairs, we, rather than just handing out literature, handed out a survey. And this survey was to actually help us understand what the needs were of the population that we're proposing to serve. These surveys were held at Leiopapa, Halava, and the women's facility over the last year and a half. And we found out some very interesting data when we're doing this. So in our survey, we asked, you have a copy of these documents. Now, these are people who are heading directly to furlough from where they are, where we were interviewing. 45% did not have birth certificates. 76% did not have state IDs. 67% did not have Social Security cards. Now, understand what this means for people who are going to furlough, whose primary obligation is to get a job within 30 days. You cannot get these documents within 30 days unless you started out way before that time to actually get them. We asked them if they had a valid driver's license. 92% of them did not. It doesn't mean that they never had a license, but when you're inside, if you're inside for more than 3 years, you're not going to have one when you come out. So many people who may have had licenses and no trouble having it are not going to have them when they come out. Now, if you answered no to this question, we asked, is your license blocked? 16% of our people said yes. If it's blocked, it means if you get the furlough and you have a license blocked, you're not going to have a license for a while, because it could be for child support, it could be for victim restitution, it could be for welfare overpayments, or it could be for the regular fines and fees you have because you haven't kept up with your licensing responsibility. We asked them some other questions that were important to their reentry. Can you operate a cell phone by sending a text and receiving one? 34% said no. This is important because the direction that we're moving in now as an agency is to actually put our material on a cell phone and let people do their job search on the cell phone itself, which they won't be able to do until they have training in this area to actually do it. Do you have email? Because this is how modern job search is done digitally, is online, and you have to have email to be able to do that. 82% do have it. This is an important strength for us, 82%. But is your email active? Well, 30% said yes. So that's a low percentage. But what can we expect if they're in prison? They need help to actually reestablish these things and to get back in the swing of things. This particular statistic is more than upsetting for me. 66% of our people do not have a resume when they're heading to furlough. So this may not be something that we think about very much, but it is very important for the efficiency of their job search for them to actually have these documents. And if they don't have them, at least to have a plan to be working on them. But we know that people who are in this position of maxing out do not have that. So this isn't about whining and crying. This is about putting together some capability of being able to handle this population and provide for them a program that makes sense. It has to be a holistic approach that addresses the intersection of homelessness and recidivism to actually be effective. We are proposing that this program has to have comprehensive case management, it has to have training and life planning, and it has to have a personalized entry plan, which I'm going to introduce to you this morning in the version of what we call the pocket path. Let's take a look first at what this progression of training and preparation should be like. The first step in it is a cognitive restructuring program. Our program is Lifestyles, which has been around for about 20 years now, is based totally and 100% on our local population and our local population's values. And it is a 6-module course that happens over 3 months of training that meets the standards for parole, RAD recommendations, and facility case manager requirements before the person who's incarcerated can be released. Once they finish that program, then in our world, they go to step 2, which is transition and family ties component. This prepares inmates for community stability, focusing on putting together a group of people who can serve as that particular person's safety net, their own direct personal safety net. This is a part of our training that we really emphasize for transition so that the person is welcomed back to the community as a new citizen, not treated as though they're interloping and coming back to a place they are not welcome in. This training sets up a circle of support for reentry that includes the Homeless Reentry Service Network I was just describing to you. The third step is WorkNet's self-directed job search. We've been doing this program since we started existence. We look at what the person's best chance is for getting a job by doing a series of things that are scientific based to find that out. We've added to that scientific based approach something I want to share with you today, which is our way of cementing together all of these 3 steps and having a way for our people to come out and do their own case management. This is a publication that we call the Pocket Pal. The Pocket Pal is a guide, it's a resource, it's a job search tool, it's an appointment book, it's a life planner, and much more. So we made an attempt to actually get one of these into your hands, and I'm hoping that the commissioners who were present would have been able to actually get that and to have it in their hands. So let me check with you now if you were actually able to get that. Yay! All right. So those of you who are in the audience, I'm so sorry I couldn't get that into your hands, but let me share that with you on my screen here. I gave it to the commissioners because you can't really experience this without holding it, touching it, and manipulating it. So commissioners, if you would follow me, this is what I'm going to do. I don't have time to share all the things that are in here. There are 35 pages in here, and there's about 35 different resources and initiatives. But let's do this. Let's first of all, commissioners, take your Pocket Pal, open it up to the central centerfold. And that centerfold looks like this. This is something that we are very proud of. This is a vocational scale that tells the person who's taken it what their best and highest source of placement in the job arena is, based on 12 industries that we know they could succeed in. When they take our assessment, we identify these 12 areas. So if you can see the highest one here, that's where we focus our people's job search, is on their highest capability of actually going into the job market. So they don't waste time in those 30 days doing things that they won't be helped by. Now, here's what I want you to see. This is part of the innovation of this particular instrument. I want you now, commissioners, to take this centerfold, kind of poke it from the back so it pokes out a little bit. And then what I want you to do is this. I want you to open up this fold out that's actually inside the Pocket Pal. And what you're going to see is a person's full-size, complete resume that we are training them to present to employers when they are in the interview. So they will talk through their strengths that they've talked about from their vocational assessment. They will present their resume to the employer as they're going through their interview, and this will actually help them secure that particular job they're interviewing for. But that ain't all. I want you now, commissioners, to turn this over, and you'll see the cover in the front. I want you to take that cover, go under it, and lift that cover up, and boom! What you have here, these are all the incentives that an employer can get if they hire someone who's coming out of the correctional system. So what our people are going to do is, first of all, they're going to present the employer with their vocational profile, so the employer sees they're totally appropriate for that job. They're going to present their resume to that employer, so that employer knows they're perfectly and totally qualified for that job. They're going to then put the capper on that particular placement by telling the employer, these are the things that you can get if you hire me for this job. Now, let me tell you something. If our people go through all of this with this employer and they go, well, you know, we don't really hire offenders around here, then what they've been told to do is, oh, okay, because I actually have several places to go and several interviews to go on. So thank you for your time. I'm going to put this back in my pocket and go to my next interview. So they're going to go in there with their heads held up. They're going to go in there offering something positive to the employer. And the least that we expect, the very least, is that when the time comes to that employer to look at people they have to apply for that job, they are going to remember the person that came in with this Pocket Pal, opened it up, and shared all this information with them. And they will be in high consideration for this job. So let me complete my presentation by showing you something else. There's too much in here for me to go over in this short presentation, but for those who have the document and they can flip through it, I would like for you now to go to page 29 and page 30. Page 29 and page 30 is something very important I want to share with you, because this document is not just meant to be a guide or a resource guide. It's meant to be a lifestyle advisory for our people. Most of you are familiar with the LSI or LSIR. I'm an LSI trainer, and I know how to both create and read the LSI. I designed these scales so that they would replicate the LSI, but they're not for the purpose of the LSI. The LSI is a level of service inventory, but it's really the level of supervision that the person needs. This is truly a scale to determine what the risk and resiliency is of our people as they leave corrections and go out in the community. And what you will see along the bottom of this particular scale are the risk and resilience dimensions that mimic and duplicate the LSI, so that our people can understand where their strengths and weaknesses are as they enter the community. We advise them to share this with their case managers or people who are really important to their development, but do not share it with employers, and do not share it with someone that is not working with you on your case. Speaking of which, the main purpose of this document is to put case management in the hands of our people. We want them to be able to run their own cases. We want them to be independent of any decisions that are made outside of their own interests. We want them to understand what those interests are, and we want them to have goals and to set habits in their lives that will allow them to meet those goals. This document consolidates and it also condenses all of the learning that we have in our program, so that when the program is finished, they will keep this document. The other things that they got, they may throw away or they may have it taken from them, but we intend for them to keep this document into the community, and in doing that, also be able to improve their chances for staying out and for actually doing what they have to do to be good. So I shared with you the document. I shared with you these particular reports that are in the document. And now I'd like to tell you that we're working on now recruiting community partners. We're looking at direct engagement with the incarcerated community through the trainings that we're doing. And we're looking for partnerships within public safety, parole, and probation leadership. In doing this, we think we will have the best opportunity for our people to progress and to be safe in the community. We are going to leverage some of my relationships with partner agencies and initiate a comprehensive campaign with those agencies in partnership to outline this program concept and to make sure the people who are entering the community can actually benefit from it. In closing, this is our team, myself, Sharon Thompson, our women's service specialist, Maurice Kalaikai, our offender service specialist, and Ruby Menon, who is our consultant. We are secured funding from City GIA, the AU Women United, and we won the Hogan Nonprofit Business Plan competition this year in April. We are looking at other sources of funding so that we can continue this program. Should you have any questions about this presentation that cannot be answered or looked at today, please contact me at this address, willchaz@gmail.com. I will be happy to correspond with you and to answer any additional questions you may have. Mahalo. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Chaz. That was amazing. Very good. I love your passion. Thank you for doing what
Thank you.
You know?
And for doing it for so long, Chaz.
Yes. Chaz,
It's taken me this long just to understand what to do.
One question real quick, Chaz, that I have, and then I'll ask the other commissioners. Is this specifically on Oahu right now?
It is, and we've had a chance only to run a couple of projects that have included these things I'm sharing with you. But in October will be the first time when all the things I've shared with you today will be consolidated into one program. And it will be on Oahu in all of our prisons.
Commissioner, any further questions to Chaz? Go ahead, Mark.
Oh.
You're muted.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Chaz for putting this together. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And having recently left the judiciary, I know a number of judges were very upset by the lack of information preparation that were provided to inmates. And so what you've done is a huge step forward, I think. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Your presentation has initiated a lot of thoughts in the head right now, Chaz. You know, and I know I'm gonna have, or we will have further conversations with you. I particularly like the way you set up that homeless reentry service network model. You know, showing the max outs and everything that they bypass.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at, when you look at the culture that's incarcerated, looking at groups and seeing how you can attack groups to help, you know, lower recidivism and lower that. And that's a clear example of a group that has probably never been focused on.
Right.
You know, in terms of max out. And then the fact that they're not going through our furlough programs and parole programs is alarming. And the fact that they're probably the majority of our recidivism.
Yes, and they are. And I do believe that we will have an opportunity in this year that we're running this program to actually have an impact on recidivism. In the studies I've done, I know that the population of potential recidivists is not that large. We only have about 350 people per year that we release in that particular situation. If we are able, and I think we can effectively address just 10% of that population, that's about 35 people a year, we can lower recidivism by 5 points. 5 points. It'll be the lowest it's ever dropped in history, and we can do that. I know we can do that if, as a community, we work together and concentrate on it.
Okay, Chad, we are going to have further conversation. I really love your passion, and thank you for presenting on this today.
Thank you, Chaz.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's a hard follow.
I think most people who participate with our regularly are aware by law that our coordinator has to, we have to advertise every 2 years. And we are going to be posting very shortly. Kristen's position ends December 31st of this year, and she is eligible to reapply for the position. But we are advertising nationally. They haven't been posted yet. They're going to be posted soon. We'll keep the advertisement up for 30 days. And after that time, the commissioners then will do vetting of the resumes that come in and decide who we're going to interview. And then we as a whole, the commission as a whole, will conduct the interviews. And of course, that will be without any audience. That is done privately, anything to do with personnel.
Right.
So, and then we have to make a recommendation of not less than 3 names to the governor. And we will forward that list to the governor in October. And we want to give him at least 2.5 months to make his decision, but sometimes they take a while.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, it's just the cursor.
Oh, it's the cursor. Okay. And just so you folks know, when we looked at the mandate that created the commission, specifically instructing us how to do this process, we sought general counsel from our attorney, Candace, who advised us, yes, this is what we have to do. There's nothing else to do. So that's why we're initiating the process at this time, informing everybody that this is something that we have to do at this particular point in time. Yeah. Any question, Mark or Mike, on the process? Okay, I believe we are visiting the Women's Community Correctional Center today. And we'll be heading over the mountain after this meeting or after lunch. Our next scheduled meeting will be September 19th, 2024, here in Oahu, here at the same place. Look for our links, and we'll be touring Leiopapa Correctional Facility after that meeting.
Public comments.
Sorry, you guys. Any public comment on the meeting today and the agenda items? Go ahead, Bob.
Unmute yourself, Bob. Bob, we can't hear you.
I did it again. Just a couple of things very briefly. Number one, it doesn't appear to me that the Department of Public Safety or Correction, Rehabilitation and Corrections knows what direct supervision is. Everybody needs direct supervision. You can't just take that concept and say these people are going to get it and these people are not. It doesn't work that way. It's not just an activity, it's a philosophy. And it has to be a philosophy for the entire facility. Yes, the people who are having the most problems, who are really traumatized, need it more than others. But it has to go for everyone. And so I just see Hawaii once again taking a great idea, a policy that is well-founded, has a historical basis, has plenty of evidence, and we're trying to switch it to our own needs, and we completely disrespect we abandon all fidelity to the model, and we say, oh, we're doing this, but I just see this over and over. Direct supervision is direct supervision. Either you have it or you don't, and we ought to get that straight. I heard things from Tommy that I think were very concerning about towers looking down into a yard. I heard him say something about circles, which reminds me of the discussion that Senator Wakai had about his trip to Indiana, where they have capital punishment, a state where they incarcerate like 3 to 4 times as many African-American people as they do white people. They are starting a panopticon building, as far as we can tell. And it sounds like when I hear the word circle in connection with our new jail, that somebody's talking about a panopticon. And that is just, an idea from Jeremy Bentham in the the middle 1800s. And it's totally ridiculous. But I just don't understand why the community can't be part of the process of developing the RFP, so that we don't end up at the very end saying this really is a terrible idea, which is where we're headed. I think the community needs to be involved in that. And I think the Oversight Commission, somebody from the Oversight Commission, should be in all of those agency meetings where the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation or Public Safety, whichever it is meeting with DAGs, is meeting with I'm sure the Attorney General must be a part of that. Budget and Finance must be part of that. The Governor's Office must be part of that. Why not you folks be part of that? Either your staff or a member, so that they don't have to talk to you. You can see every day what's going on with regard to the evolution of this new jail, because I just think it's on the wrong track. It's not getting off of the wrong track. And both I'm organizing personally with Paula Morelli and others. We are going to get a community organization, and we're going to demand that we have a seat at the table when they do the RFP and planning of the new jail. I hope you guys will be there too. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Kaho. Unmute, Ron.
Mahalo. I'm Ron Fujiyoshi from Honolulu. I'll try to be brief. If I haven't said before, I think we have been very hopeful because of the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. And ever since you've gotten staff, I think it's been building our hope. And I think an example of that was a discussion today about pause. I think you know that we started in 1999 as an organization that was stopping the building of prisons on Hawaii Island, and we've gone against 4 different prisons. So we take a hard line in our mission statement. In number 6, it says, "Stop the building of a new prison or a prison in disguise." So we take a hard line on it, and we think that if you really push the rehabilitation, you don't need to build a new prison. And because there are places which have beds even in Hawaii that are not being filled. And I think if you deal with the disproportionate number of Hawaiians in prison and the elderly, and so I wanted to end with the discussion. Thank you for Cara's comments on the letter from Mike Hughes. But I wish Judge Towns was still on, because I wanted to raise a question, because in my understanding of a lifer or a sentence without parole is that you do not go automatically before the Hawaii Paroling Authority. At the end of 20 years, they may bring the case up without your participation at all, and then decide that you do not qualify. And so that when Mike Towns talks about reduction of minimum, I think lifers don't even qualify for that. I think Kara's correct in saying it's commutation, and that has to go through the governor, and it's a different process completely. So I think we need clarification on that, and I think it'll help people like Mike Hughes, who has done outstanding work while he was in prison. I've been in correspondence with him, and even knew about him from Steve Morse, who was working for OHA in the old days and was helping out, and now has lymphoma, but is still in touch with Mike. I hope the Oversight Commission can clarify what it means for lifers, because I think that's a whole bunch of people who are elderly, hurting with health problems, but many of them do have family support, and that have places that they should be getting out to be with family. So thank you very much.
Ron, as I recall the law, it is the department is supposed to assist anyone who has life without parole at the 20-year mark in applying for a commutation. And we need to look into that more, but the department has a role in that also, not just the paroling authority. The paroling one will make the decision. But once you pass the 20 years, you can keep on applying for that commutation. I think that not many people are encouraged to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Come, Carol.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me. Throat's dry. ACL Hawaii just wants to submit some comments relating to reference to Saguaro Prison and out-of-state facilities. Our position is that we should not be transferring people out of state. Everybody should be brought home. And we are deeply concerned. It's been meeting over meeting. We hear that there are empty beds at Kulani, Waiava, other facilities, flux over time. Why are those beds not being filled? Why are people not being brought home? There are empty spaces in furlough. We can have extended furlough in the community. We can extend and expand contracts with YWCA, Going Home Hawaii, Men of Pa'a. We need to invest in our community where people can get holistic wraparound services, including the reentry program that Chaz Williams just spoke of. And so it's a matter of our priorities and where we want to invest our funds. But it's deeply troubling to us. Again, another valve, which has been alluded to, is using compassionate release. There's a number of kupuna, people with medical conditions, that also could be in the community. Beyond that, the levels of violence in our jails and prisons, but particularly at Saguaro, is disturbing. A number of us have had loved ones who've been transferred out of state for the past 20 plus years. And it's horrifying because you don't know what's happening. This recent stabbing of Daniel Kosi at Saguaro, when I saw a news article and video footage with the mother and sister, they didn't even get a phone call, and their son and their brother was stabbed repeatedly. And this brings to mind incidents that have occurred year after year. Bronson Nunua was stabbed multiple times. The ACLU represented his family in a wrongful death lawsuit. There was also a gentleman, Anton Mickelbus, 46, I think a few months ago, also killed at Swolo. There was Jonathan Nabulov some years ago from Maui, originally from Saipan. He was 5'5" tall, 115 pounds. He was described as a child as having learning disabilities. At 18, he often misspelled his own name and read at the first grade level. And we shipped him out of state for using marijuana, something that we could have rehabilitated and provided support, but we incarcerated him, sent it off to Saguaro where he was killed. And unfortunately, there's no time to mention all the names of the people who died, not to mention the drug smuggling, the lack of capacity issues, and the fact that there are shareholders that are profiting off of this harm to our people. And so our request for the commission, but for lawmakers, for the judiciary, for the executive branch, all branches of governments need to work to bring our people home and have an exit plan, a strategy. Some other states had mass incarceration out of state, and over a period of time, strategically, using evidence-based practices, they brought people home. The Department of Justice launched into a Tennessee facility, and I know that the ACLU will be sending a letter to the Department of Justice and asking them to look into what has been happening in Saguaro. We will also be contacting some of our congressional lawmakers and asking them to reach out to the DOJ to take a look at what's happening in Saguaro, because this is the same CoreCivic operating that facility in Tennessee that's operating Saguaro, and it is unconscionable that we're doing that. And so we just want to ask the Oversight Commission, we know that you have limited funding to go up to Saguaro, but it's deeply troubling that the Director of Public Safety didn't see the stabbing recently as a serious event to fly up there. And we appreciate all the work that the commission is doing. We do not want to dismiss the work you're doing, but our position is that you can have no meaningful oversight if the prison is thousands of miles away. If something happens at Halava or MCCC, any one of you, any of the DCR staff can jump on a plane in the same day. That doesn't happen when our people are thousands of miles away. And so let's look at a long-term exit strategy, but also I know we will be reaching out to our federal congressional delegation and asking for their oversight and to look closely at Saguaro. So thank you for all that you're doing, and welcome back, Kristen.
Thank you, Karen.
Kat, did you have something you want to say?
You can't say.
Pat, check your audio on Zoom. What is it connected to?
Yeah.
Just click on that little microphone.
It's okay.
Okay.
She did it before and we couldn't hear her.
Okay, that's our last of our public comments.
No, we still can't hear you. No.
Sorry, Kat.
Give us a call. Let's do lunch.
Once again, our next meeting will be Thursday, September 19th. And we'll be doing a tour of Halava Correctional Facility. So I really appreciate you folks. It's 11:21. That was a long one today. But as we approach the end of the year, we're gearing up for the legislative session in January. So we can expect a little bit longer meetings than normal as we strategize on how we continue to set the foundation for more serious reform in our correctional system. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, commissioners. We'll keep in touch. Kristen, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back. Kara, all your work.
Thank you for
George,
coming back.
all your work. And
Thanks, Mark.
we're gonna move on. Aloha.
Guys, take care. Law.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.